In 2025, the running back dead zone is no more. It's gone. Sayonara. It's dead. And we're going to tell you guys exactly why it's dead, how we're handling it, and this running back renaissance we've seen the last 2 years, how it's affected market value in ADP. So we're going to start by going through the running back dead zone hit rates the last couple of years. We'll talk about what dead zone backs have hit, what dead zone backs have missed, and then we'll talk about the current day dead zone, who are the good projections, and so on and so forth. Danny, let's start it off with why the running back dead zone is no more. And the reason is the last 2 seasons, over 50% of the running backs from the round 4 through round 7 range, picks 37 and 84 of ADP, have produced a positive win rate.
And at the risk of being called Unk in the comments by Arthur, the reason why this is the case, as you guys can see, is in the last 2 years, 17 running backs have gone in the top 50, 14 running backs have gone in the top 50 in 2023 and 2024, respectively. Before that, in the previous 8 years, only 2 such years existed where there were sub 20 running backs selected in the top 50 picks. Drafters are sharper. They realize, hey, we're not just going to grab a running back to fill our lineup, to add on to our depth. People are a lot more selective in the running backs they are picking, which has resulted in more wide receivers, more quarterbacks, more tight ends going off the board, specifically on Underdog, especially the wide receiver position being pushed up the board. And as a result, these running back profiles, we are getting at 15 pick discounts. Like you said, you can get the running back 15 off the board in 2024 outside of the top 50 picks. That was never available. Like in 2018, you would have had to take RB 15 in the early 3rd round.
Yeah, maybe even in the 2nd round. You remember that Kenyon Drake year or whatever? Yeah. He was like RB 15 off the board and he went near the 1-2 turn. Like people were going, okay, scarce position, get him early, which again is not necessarily incorrect, but it was resulting in us just pushing up bad profiles. And now we're doing kind of almost the opposite, where on Underdog, we're pushing up like wide receiver 3s and 4s into like the 4th, 5th round, when realistically the half PPR point projection of an Alvin Kamara just outweighs that of a Jawan Jennings or whoever's going around him.
Yeah, just simply it's the pendulum. It's where the pendulum was always swinging towards the running back position. And obviously we hop on, Ron hops on, all these content creators hop on. The general viewer base is becoming sharper in terms of, like I said, being selective at the running backs they pick. But if it was like this for the longest time, it's starting to do this all the way up to this year, in my opinion. I think the last couple years, people were starting to do it. We see it as a result on the running backs that weren't going in the top 50. And despite these running backs literally paying off over half of the time, there's only 14 running backs going in the top 50 this year.
We have not learned our lesson. Everyone was afraid that the running back renaissance is going to result in all these running backs going early again. No, 14 are going in the top 50. RB 15 off the board is outside the top 50 picks on Underdog. And even when you factor in multi-site ADP, so like Sleeper, ESPN, Yahoo, all of that available in our draft guide, which dropped yesterday, which is available on flockfantasy.com, only 19 of them are going inside of the top 50. So again, somewhere between 19 and 22 is probably like harmony. That's probably how many should be going in the top 50. But we are only seeing 14 go off the board on Underdog, which means that in sharper leagues, a lot of those running back profiles in the mid RB2 range are going to be sliding into round 6, into round 7.
And the main thing is the market sentiment, because like I said, running backs, people felt like they had to add on because they didn't want to be behind the 8 ball for the scarce position. Wide receiver inversely has become that now in Underdog. It's almost like a fear of missing out. If I don't have 4 wide receivers through my first, 65 picks or so, I feel like I'm going to be behind the 8 ball. And again, we'll take some of the blame there. Obviously, we were a proponent of, the market getting sharper, drafting wide receivers earlier. But like I said, when the pendulum swings a little bit the other way, we have to bring the information to you guys.
Yeah. So talking about the actual micro player takes, the anatomy of a modern day Deadzone back has changed. We are not stupid enough to take Mike Davis types in the 4th round like we were back in 2020. He's the prototype Deadzone running back. The last 2 years, the guys that were going in the Deadzone between pick 37 and 84, give or take, of ADP, who still missed, usually missed largely due to like injury. You think of like Kenneth Walker the last couple of years been banged up. You think of J.K. Dobbins 2 years ago tears his Achilles in like week 1. Raheem Mostert last year couldn't stay on the field. Javonte Williams coming off of a major injury. But there were other reasons why they missed too, and it was generally the same reasons that they missed before when we were actively taking Deadzone running backs higher. It's just that these guys maybe had less concerns than those guys usually did. They were missing due to like shaky talent, shaky workloads. Zamir White is the poster child of this last year. Nobody should have been drafting Zamir White in the top 84 picks, but they still were anyways.
Well, the thing is, too, that is remarkable is even though Zamir White was a miss last year, and obviously we weren't drafting him, we were calling him a miss all summer, even at the depressed ADP that maybe we would have got him in 2020. I mean, Zamir White was just quite literally the Mike Davis case, except we were doing it at a 4-round discount. So I didn't fault people. Like, I didn't think it was a good pick to take Zamir White, but if you were Zamir White pilled, it's a lot better to do it in round 8 than it is round 4.
Yeah, because like you said, in 2020, he would have been a 4th-round pick. You think of even Cam Akers in 2023 before Kyron took over. We were drafting Cam Akers in like the early 5th round, and like that wouldn't have happened yet again. I think the big reason why these guys have missed more so than previous years is the threat of other talented running backs behind them. That's why a lot of these guys have missed. Rashad White last year is a good example of that. Najee Harris in 2024, also a good example that Jalen Warren gets more work. Dalvin Cook, for some reason, on Unk leagues was going in 2023 in the dead zone, even though Breece Hall, coming off the ACL tear, was behind him. And then there was a lot of just bad offenses, low receiving upside guys. Some guys, like I said, got hurt or had pre-existing injury concerns that flared up. Mostert, Akers, Dobbins, and Kenneth Walker being good examples of that. So again, generally, the anatomy of a dead zone back hasn't really changed. It's just that we are seeing a lot more of these dead zone profiles slide to the point that more of them are hitting, because if you're drafting a 2-down banger on a bad offense in the 7th round, they don't need to be nearly as good as a 2-down banger in a bad offense in the 3rd round like they were going 4 years ago.
Exactly, right? I think that's the main focus that people have to take away is fantasy as a whole is just an opportunity cost game. When the pendulum swings so far one way or the other, the opportunity cost is going to be more attainable at the other positions. It's just, frankly, like if running backs are going earlier, wide receivers are going to have better opportunity costs. If wide receivers are going earlier, every running back you make is going to be a better pick comparably to what it was, like I said, when the wide receivers weren't going nearly as high.
As easy as it sounds, it really is just pick the best player on the board. It is just
quite literally.
Elite quarterback falls to you, take him. Elite tight end falls to you, take him. You know, when you're deciding, like if the current ADP landscape, the exact players that we have right now, if this was 2019, Josh Jacobs would be a late 1st-round pick, and we would be getting Brian Thomas Jr. and Nico Collins in the 3rd round. That's just reality. That's what would be happening right now.
Yeah, and again, like because we've learned from that, I don't expect the market to shift like that. And quite frankly, I would still take those wide receivers high. But you're right. People would say back then, hey, 12 running backs in the first 15 picks is how we're going. I remember when zero RB first got brought up to the scene, back 2020, 2021, it was kind of new. Everybody was kind of like, oh, you're hipster if you're drafting zero RB. Running backs are scarce. Everybody knows that. Running backs win leagues. I mean, fuck, even when we were young, we were kind of thinking that a little bit. It was the boomerism in the overall market of these running backs. We were talking about, should we take prime Devontae Adams or the running back 11 off the board? That was real discussions we were having.
Yeah, I think the key takeaway for everyone watching this is that the first 2 to 3 rounds, they are going to really ping pong who's the better projection, running back, wide receiver, running back, wide receiver. The thing that we shouldn't have been doing before, which is push the 4th, 5th, 6th round, all these bad running back profiles up. And the thing that we're doing now, which is 4th, 5th, 6th round, pushing all these bad wide receiver profiles up. That's not what we should be doing. It should be a little bit more harmonized throughout the rest of the draft. Let's talk about the dead zone hits, the guys that ended up hitting out of the dead zone. You guys can see some of the biggest win rate running backs of the last 2 years. Alvin Kamara last year and in 2023, Rashad White in 2023, Josh Jacobs last year. How the hell was Josh Jacobs going outside the top 36 picks last year as the Green Bay Packers starting running back? That is literally just the biggest example of why the running back pendulum has swung too far. A guy like Josh Jacobs in 2019 on the Green Bay Packers would have legitimately been a 1st-round pick. The talent was there, pass catching upside for a lot of these guys. You think of James Cook last year in 2024, the great offense with the touchdown upside. Some of these guys were older, and that's part of this as well, is that people don't want to be taking older, aging running backs like Kamara, like Mixon, like James Conner, like Aaron Jones in past years, but they haven't fallen off from a talent perspective, and that's why we should still be drafting them if they don't show signs of decline.
And that's something, my main takeaway that I learned from last year is I was fading some guys simply due to the age, simply due to the touch workload. And it isn't the end all be all. Obviously, again, we'll talk about the dead zone profiles. I do think it matters in your analysis in terms of I would say risk selection, risk safety.
It's the bear case.
Right? Like you have to understand the bear case, but also acknowledging like just because they're old, just because there is a bear case for these guys to get hurt, to get less efficient, to decline as players, there also is the upside that, hey, guess what? If they're getting volume and they're in good situations, sometimes it doesn't matter. Like James Conner last year had the best year of his career.
Yeah, and also some of these guys are just aging like fine wine too, which might just be a micro player take thing that James Conner and Kamara and these guys are aging better. And it might be a sign of things to come because you think of some of these guys not getting big workloads early in their career. Aaron Jones, Alvin Kamara, we wanted them to get more touches at the beginning of their career, and it's paying off that they're playing longer and they're efficient longer.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, though, the way you look at it, what's the upside in terms of the passing volume? What's the upside in terms of the talent? What's the upside in terms of scoring opportunity? It's like those still factor in for older running backs, even though they're old. Like we can't just completely ignore them because, a guy's 28 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and one thing I'm not going to do ever again, at least not until this maybe the pendulum swings back the other way, is avoid a 4th or a 5th round running back simply because they're going in the 4th or the 5th round, and that was previously known as the RB dead zone.
Exactly. And I think that's the other thing too, is people had these predetermined barriers for what exactly the dead zone represented. And don't worry, at the end of this video, we'll talk about what we believe the new running back dead zone to be. But for the most part, I mean, everybody read the Pat Rain article. Everybody watched, us and Ron Stewart breaking it down on videos. Everybody realized, hey, if you're dropping a running back between rounds 3 and 7, it's probably not going to work out for you because they've heard every single piece of content, not regurgitating, but coming to the same claim, because at the time that was absolutely true.
Yeah, the data was there to support those claims. And Sean Siegel, I believe, was the first guy who popularized the term RB Deadzone. And then people started to latch onto it, like he said, do more research on it and come to realize that, yeah, it definitely was a problem at the time. But let's talk about 2025. Let's talk about the guys in the dead zone, quote unquote, or formerly known of the dead zone, which was that rounds 4 through 7 range, pick 37 in ADP off the board through pick 84 in ADP off the board. You guys can see all, 10, 15 running backs going off the board in this range. And we're going to go through this kind of bucket by bucket because we have a couple of profiles that fit the same archetype. You have aging multi-time RB1s. You have guys more RB2 projections who are aging. And then you also have guys that are still in their prime, 24 through 26 years old. And then you also have a lot of rookie running backs going in this range as well. So we're going to go through them using our site, flockfantasy.com. We have a brand new player comparison tool that you guys are going to see on display here. And you can use a lot of game splits to determine when these guys were the starters. So let's get right into the first group of guys, which is like the in their prime running backs. So this first bucket of guys is running backs who are in their prime. All of these 4 running backs that are here are 24, 25, 26 years old. They're not aging running backs yet, but they're also not like rookies. We kind of know what they are at this point in their career. And this is the cool thing about the site that you can do now is you can legitimately customize these timeframes going back a number of years and pick out the games that you want. And with Chuba Hubbard, for example, there was periods of time where he wasn't the starter for the Panthers because they signed Miles Sanders going into the one season. And then obviously they had Jonathan Brooks as well.
Yeah, and it's funny that you're mentioning, contextualized game logs, obviously week 6 on for Chuba Hubbard because that's when he got his workload, because that's actually something I will be bringing to the site for our draft guide, going through the cases for some of the top fantasy players this year, kind of, baking in trends. For example, we've mentioned on the channel before, Devon Achane without Tua. Guys like that where we can spot a pattern from their season and a takeaway for what we should apply going into 2025.
Yeah, and Pacheco's a good example of that too. Week 3 of 2023 onward, he was the starter. Weeks 1 to 2 before he got injured, he was a clear starter as well. So when you compare all these numbers, you can see how they stacked up PPR points per game wise, RB finish, snap percentage and that kind of thing. These guys are all going. I'll list their ADPs right now. Kenneth Walker is about a mid 4th round pick in multi-site ADP. So that's Sleeper, ESPN, NFL, Yahoo, and Underdog included. So you get kind of a mix of like sharper formats, less sharp formats, going off the board about a mid 4th rounder. Chuba Hubbard, about a late 4th rounder, 4-5 turn or so. DeAndre Swift and Pacheco is a little bit of a gap there, going mid 6th, both guys. So when you look at this data and you think of the bear and bull cases for each of these guys, we kind of know how each of them miss, I would say, because none of these guys are supremely talented running backs, except for Kenneth Walker, I would say. Chuba Hubbard, maybe not the best running back in the world. DeAndre Swift, not the best running back in the world. Isaiah Pacheco, not the best running back in the world. But if you think of the bull case for Kenneth Walker, it's that he gets back and plays healthy the whole year and is, maybe getting more receiving work as we've seen. Bull case for Chuba Hubbard is probably that he just plays like he did in 2024 and the offense gets better. Swift, offense gets better. He gets more efficient, more to that 2023 efficiency. And then Pacheco, he plays for the Chiefs. He has a lot of red zone upside in that regard.
Yeah, and I think something that could help, we can just talk case by case. Like, for example, a guy like Kenneth Walker, the reason why there would be optimism in drafting him here, obviously he's already been kind of, disappointing, I would say, in the last couple of years from a hit rate perspective. You kind of pointed out in the dead zone, but they do add a new interior offensive lineman. They do bring in Cliff Kingsbury. Like, there's a very real possibility that we do see the Seahawks take another step. Obviously, there is some concern there, Geno Smith to Sam Darnold, etc. But I think ultimately with Kenneth Walker specifically, the offseason has helped him.
Yeah, I think you said Cliff Kingsbury. You meant Clint Kubiak. I was
Clint Kubiak, my apologies. You put, two Ks in the name, and I get mixed up,
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, you could see like some of the metrics that these guys shine in and how they get there. If that aligns with their bull case, I think that's really, really good. Because if you think about Chuba Hubbard, where is he winning? He's winning in a lot of these categories, and it's because of volume, right? Like he's getting there on volume. But why we might be kind of shying away from Chuba Hubbard a little bit is that Rico Dowdle, Trevor Etienne may be threatening his volume versus you look at Isaiah Pacheco, where was he winning? Because he actually scored the most PPR points, taking the split of his best games versus these other guys' best games. He was winning on, high yards per carry, some target totals as well, and then also 0.93 rush attempts inside the 5-yard line per game. So we're talking about a guy getting there on touchdown volume. And this to me screams that Isaiah Pacheco should be drafted a lot higher than he is.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I think this comparison tool should be used if you guys are over on Flock Fantasy is spotting, okay, what are the bull cases, what are the bear cases, and what do the stats tell us how likely they are to get in the bull case? Like we said for Kenneth Walker, talented player, stays healthy. We've seen him have top 5 stretches before. If he is fully healthy, we still believe in, like you said, Kubiak being able to run that offense, plus added into your offensive line help. Chuba Hubbard, maybe the bear case for him would be that threat to the workload, like you said, with Dowdle and with Trevor Etienne being brought in. DeAndre Swift, we could point to a tale of 2 seasons, like you said. He was efficient 2 years ago. Last year, the efficiency kind of dropped off, but holistically, you look at the efficiency metrics, they are, I would say, fine. Obviously, he's not, excelling in any category per se, but, you got the yards per carry at over 4, you got the rush attempts inside the 5, top 20 in the league, obviously the total yards per game at 17th. So if the Bears offense will take the step we think it will be, and DeAndre Swift does end up being their workhorse, there's a lot of value there if he can up that, total touchdown number up, for example.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's bull and bear cases to be made across the board about all these guys. Let's quickly label these guys. At a mid-4th round price tag, you in or out on Kenneth Walker? Is he a dead zone running back or a guy that you're avoiding? Or a guy that you're targeting, sorry.
So he's a guy I'm comfortable taking it about his cost. As you guys can see, the FSC rank 45.5 versus the average ADP at 44.4. I think if I need a running back, I like the youth, obviously, of course, as a 25-year-old running back. Kenneth Walker, when he's healthy, especially from a redraft perspective, has a lot of tradability when he's doing well. So I'm comfortable taking him in that 4th round area.
Yeah, I think I'm a more 4 or 5 turn, but I'm still probably comfortable taking him in that range as well. What about Chuba Hubbard? Is he more of a dead zone running back or a guy that you're betting on? Because like we said, the bear case to me is probably the most likely situation of what happens is that he loses touches. But at the same time, you could say this guy was a Pro Bowl running back last year, and Dave Canales is still there, who's used a workhorse everywhere he's been, really, like with Rachaad White in 2023 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then last year he used Chuba Hubbard as a workhorse. So I would say for me, it's going to depend on what the buzz is on Dowdle and Etienne for the rest of the offseason. Because if Hubbard looks like he's going to be the dude and his ADP even slides a little bit out of the 4th round into the 5th, into the 6th round, I'm probably more in at those price tags.
Yeah, that's kind of how I viewed it as well. Again, I don't mind Hubbard, but I did drop him a little bit because, like you said, I do think his workload is threatened, and he's a guy who completely excelled in workload. It wasn't just like he got a solid workload, like 1.24 rush attempts per game inside the 5, top 5 marker in the NFL, over 17 carries per game, number 6 in the NFL, 74% snap share, 6th in the NFL. Like, this is why this tool is so valuable, because if you do think there's threats for his workload going into this year, Chuba Hubbard's not going to be the best pick on the board for you.
Yeah, remember that I'm including 2023 in there as well, when the Panthers had literally the 1st overall pick the final year or the following year. And if I just took 24,
number 1 in rush attempts inside the 5,
literally even better.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe Rico Dowdle will take some of those. Obviously, I mean, Trevor Etienne, more of a scat back, but who knows? Maybe inside the 10, he catches, a screen pass and takes it in. You know what I mean? Just having overall more backfield competition is a negative any way you slice it for Chuba Hubbard. Even though I like him, I think, RB17, RB18 fine price tag. I do prefer Walker straight up. And I actually recently just moved, as we'll talk about in a second, Isaiah Pacheco straight up over him.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you could say for Chuba Hubbard positively is that the offense could get much better. And the fact that he literally was like that good inside the 5, like he was literally leading the NFL in inside the 5 attempts. If they're inside the 5 more often, because the team is a lot better because they have Ted McMillan now and Bryce was playing at a high level towards the end of the season or whatever. I mean, well, who's to say Chuba Hubbard doesn't punch in 12 to 15 touchdowns next year?
Yeah, no, definitely a realistic case, which is why, again, even though I think there is a bear case for him, ultimately, if the offense does improve, he can cede some more of those touches. Maybe the rush attempts per game goes down from 18 to 15 and a half, 16. Maybe we see the rush attempts inside the 5 per game. Yeah, sure, it could be offset with more touch competition, but also if the offense gets better, they're just going to have more overall opportunities. Like, Chuba Hubbard's a fun one where I think he's fine where he goes, but it's not like somebody I'm going to be overly ecstatic about. Like, I mean, obviously not a dead zone running back, but anytime I see Chase Brown in the 3rd round, for example, I get giddy. A smile gets on my face. Like for Chuba Hubbard, it's not like I'm going to be smiling after leaving my draft in that area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco, again, bear and bull cases, we pretty much summed it up. Swift gets a lot better if the Bears get a lot better, which is the most likely projected outcome given the offseason additions that they made. Except for at running back, really, it is pretty much just going to be DeAndre Swift's backfield, I would imagine, yet again. And then Isaiah Pacheco, again, to me, the most likely outcome
Easiest click in the board right now?
What's up?
Easiest click at running back on the board right now in this range?
One of them, definitely, especially on Underdog where he goes in like the mid 70s or whatever. He was going in the mid 80s at points in time. A running back profile like this, Isaiah Pacheco, who has an RB1 season under his belt, who plays for a top 5 projected offense in points per game, would be going in the 2-3 turn where he was going last year, realistically.
Yeah, no, and that's like we thought he was a great pick at that 2-3 turn. Now, obviously, gets hurt when he comes back, splits time with Kareem Hunt. It's like, I think the Chiefs know what they're dealing with. In fact, the exact injury that Isaiah Pacheco suffered in the first game of last year, I believe it was week 1 or week 2.
I believe it was week 3 against the Bengals that he suffered that.
So it was week 3. It was the same exact injury that Tony Pollard had that literally curtailed his entire, I believe, 2023 season when he was completely inefficient because he suffered the same injury in that playoff game versus the 49ers. Guess what? When you're a running back and you fracture, I believe it was either the tibia or the fibula. Correct me in the comments if you guys know exactly which bone it was. Running backs specifically suffering that injury and trying to get back to their efficiency right away just doesn't happen. And Tony Pollard was a prime example of it. I think Isaiah Pacheco, a full year healthy, going into the season. We're high on this Chiefs offense, especially. I mean, as you guys can see, like the total touchdowns weren't even like they were complete outliers. Number 14 in total touchdowns. If the Chiefs are back to Chiefs level football, big plays, explosives, Patrick Mahomes is doing Patrick Mahomes things, well, Isaiah Pacheco might very well luck his way into 15 touchdowns just being on this offense.
Yeah, not to mention, I know Dwayne McFarland has pointed this out too, but Pacheco in the first 2 games was the first time in his career where he was getting the long down and distance and the route participation too, because normally they had like a Jerick McKinnon type take that away from him in 2023, and he actually was getting everything in 2024 in those first 2 games, and obviously it was a broken fibula that he suffered. That derailed that potential league-winning season from Isaiah Pacheco that both of us were on last year.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you can get a 2-3 discount attached to one of the 5 to 10 best offenses in the league, at worst case scenario, like I think the Chiefs offense can very well get back to like a top 3 level unit in the league. And if I get that level of offensive upside for a guy that I project to potentially be a workload on their team, yeah, I will have them ranked aggressively on ADP. He is not a dead zone running back. So the fact that you're getting him in dead zone range is sweet.
Yeah, and even Swift too, as a mid 6th round price tag, I'm pretty okay with both of these guys where they go, because you can draft your receivers early. You can get a couple running backs on your roster, maybe deviate for an elite quarterback or an elite tight end if you want to, and snag Isaiah Pacheco in the 6th round or snag DeAndre Swift in the 6th round as your RB2 when you drafted Bijan in the 1st and you hammered out wide receivers plus Lamar Jackson or something like that. Like, it's pretty insane that you're getting this level of projection on offenses that could be really, really good at that range of the draft. So pivoting into the aging running backs here, particularly the aging multi-time RB1s, you see Joe Mixon and Kamara shown there twice. Mainly the reason for that is that they were a lot better at the beginning of the season as they were at the end of the season, both of them going off the board in the mid 4th round. James Conner, more of like a mid 5th round pick. In multi-site ADP, more of like a 6th rounder on Underdog. You could see that Mixon was the RB2 over the first 10 games of the season last year. 20.8 PPR points per game. Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara, both top 5 running backs over that first like 10 weeks of the season. And even Alvin Kamara too, you could take his whole 2023 and his whole 2024, and the guy's legitimately giving you nearly 19 fantasy points per game in PPR leagues.
Well, I mean, inherently, as we know, outside of James Conner, who just had his best season as a professional, this is the risk of the older running backs. And I understand in best ball specifically, okay, like if you're in a tie-break situation, just take the younger running back, because we could see, come the money weeks, the younger running backs, they're going to be inherently more healthy at that point than the older legs, which again is evident through Alvin Kamara, through Joe Mixon based off these splits. But if you are in your home redraft league, the reason why these are still fine in this range is because they're going to get immediate workloads, and they have the type of name brand where guess what? You don't have to hold them for all 17 weeks. If you're in your home redraft sleeper league, start 8, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes, or whatever the case may be, Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara going off to 18 point per game starts in the first 5 weeks of the year is going to give you tradability.
Bro, in week 6, we did a video called, trade. Like we talked about it as our best trade targets video of the year. You could have traded Joe Mixon for Bijan Robinson plus in week 6 last year.
That's insane to think about. I mean, I remember weekly ranking Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara legitimately as top 5 level running backs to start the year. And as you guys can see, that was the right case to be because Alvin Kamara in that stretch, 18.5 points per game. Joe Mixon in that stretch, 20.8 points per game. But unfortunately, the risk of these older running backs is the moment they get nicked up, they lose some efficiency. Maybe as a result, the team says, hey, you're not healthy. We can't give you 100% of your workload. Like Joe Mixon is a prime example of that. He went from 21.57 rush attempts per game to 12.33 down the stretch.
And it only took him 2 games to actually get hurt, too. If you remember on that Chicago Sunday night football game, he got banged up in that Sunday game, an ankle sprain. He was still good after that. But, the older you get, the more touches you have under your belt, the less you can play through stuff like that. And it kind of wore on him towards the end of the season. Plus, I mean, we could kind of transition this right into, are we in, are we out on Joe Mixon and Kamara? We'll talk about Connor separately in a second, but Joe Mixon and Alvin Kamara, I talked about both of them in the end is near video in the Dynasty running backs, frame of mind, Dynasty running back landscape. To me, I'm out on Mixon, and it's for a couple of reasons, because A, a mid 4th round price tag is baking in the upside that he has, and B, Texans have a bad offensive line.
He's already on the NFL.
Is currently already dealing with stuff, and his thing is volume. He has never been an efficient running back really the last couple of years, even though he did average 4.41 yards per carry over those first 10 games. Nick Chubb coming in is a threat for his ground volume. Woody Marks coming in is a threat for his air volume. So for me, I'm actually out on Mixon this year, given his price tag, but I'm not out on Kamara, who, even though he plays for a really terrible offense, could legitimately have 100 targets this year.
Yeah, no, he very well could. Again, I don't have Alvin Kamara nearly as high as you do. I do have him as my RB 21 in my rankings, but at the same time, if you need like an early season play, like I said, you drafted wide receivers early and you just need a Kamara to get you 20 touches per game to get you over the top while maybe like a Trevion Henderson's developing. We'll talk about some of these rookies at the end of the video, but ideally, if you're going to take those rookies, and Alvin Kamara would be the way you get there. Like, can you just get enough touches by week 5 once Trevion Henderson takes over his backfield? Alvin Kamara is kind of that type of back that can help you, and maybe add, I mean, we'll talk a little bit later in the dead zone to like a Brian Robinson type to maybe fill out the depth.
Yeah, to me, Alvin Kamara, the reason I'm not going to doubt him this year is because you just mentioned Trevion Henderson, which I think is a perfect guy to bring up as he's so good, man. He could even be Alvin Kamara this year. He's a mystery box, man. Why don't I just take Alvin Kamara, who had 89 targets last year, and even though he's probably going to be on a bottom 5 NFL offense, he has legit 100 target upside. And again, who knows? Maybe Tyler Shuck
efficiency and offensive concern. That would be the reason for me. The efficiency and the offensive concern that I don't have for Trevion Henderson kind of combats maybe the early volume that I think Kamara will get. Again, it's not like it's widespread. I don't have like a huge gap, but RB 21 is just acknowledging like he is going to be a floor play for me. Like, I don't think he's got the upside to do what he did last year based off how we finished the season and how we project the Saints offense to finish out.
So outside of the first 2 weeks last year, the New Orleans Saints were the 30th ranked offense in points per game. Do you think they're about going to be the 30th to 32nd ranked offense again?
Yeah, probably about that.
That's why I'm saying, like, Kamara's done this already. Like, and they started some bad, like they have Jake Hayner out there for some games last year.
If you don't mind me asking, can you look at his split excluding those first 2 games then?
Well, in the first 2 games, Alvin Kamara had
44
points against the Cowboys and 22 fantasy points against the Carolina Panthers. But even after, if I remove those games, I can pull this up right on the thing right here. If I take out his full 2023, which I was including, and I just go weeks 3 onward, like you said, to take out those first 2 games, he still is producing 16.6 fantasy points per game at a 5th round price tag.
Yeah, which I think is reasonable. I think holistically on the season this year, he's probably going to be in that running back 12 to 17 range is where I'd about peg him. But at the same time, you're also acknowledging the fact that he's going to be a slow finisher. Again, I think I'm fine with him at ADP. I have him ranked 60th overall. He goes a little bit before that. But if I'm in a league that does stress running backs a little bit earlier than where they go on Underdog, for example, I'm comfortable reaching like 7 or 8 picks because the wide receiver range on Sleeper is completely broken right now.
Yeah, and the other thing I would point to that maybe put some noise into that weeks 3 to 18 split is that Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed went down with
Yeah,
injury too. And the offense,
for sure.
even if it's bad quarterback wise, and Derek Carr is better than what they currently
Yeah.
have, it's like they didn't have any receivers for a long time.
Yeah, no, it's fair. We'll see what ends up happening. I ultimately think the Saints will have the first pick, so I am affecting the Kamara ranking a little bit. But that's not to say that if you need running back production early on in the season, that he isn't a good pick.
Yeah, if it's the 5th round, I'm picking him. I don't care that he's old. I don't like he has not fallen off. He gets the targets, and I absolutely cannot stand the New Orleans Saints, and I'm still willing to pick Alvin Kamara at that point in time. Let's talk about James Conner because, like you made mention to there, 2024. If I just filter by 2024 here,
And he's a guy I recently moved one spot ahead of Kamara because I don't have as many concerns in terms of the efficiency of play dropping off.
Yeah, you're right, because he has actually had his most 2 efficient seasons in back-to-back years at age 28 and 29 years old, and he is 30 entering this year. So while James Conner has not shown any sign of decline, and the Cardinals actually currently projected for the 9th most points in implied total, and due a large part because that they play the Rams twice, the 49ers twice, and the Seahawks
High
twice.
scoring division.
It's a high scoring division, and I think they also play another division in the NFC that's also very high scoring, the NFC North, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot to be excited about for James Conner, knowing that even though you and I are high on Trey Benson, the talent long term, it doesn't look like the Cardinals are willing to give James Conner anything less than a workhorse role until he's hanging it up.
So do we play you guys this year, by the way, Cowboys Bucks?
I think we might. I'd have to look at it. I actually don't know off the top of my head for sure if it's the NFC North. It might be the NFC South that the NFC West plays this year, but I would imagine that their implied total is also inflated by the other teams that they play.
Yeah, I was just mostly curious because, like, when you said that, I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't actually realize that was the case. But regardless, like you said, James Conner, I mean, the only concern that I have for Conner is he is still to date in his career, never finished a full healthy season. And that's really the only concern I have is how many games is he going to play? If he plays 15 plus games like he did last year, very good pick where he's going. The issue, though, is we can't predict when it'll happen. And it almost feels like it's inevitably going to happen at some point this year. It's just, does it happen in week 15 or does it happen in week 7? Like, that's kind of the question mark I have with James Conner. But realistically, if my only question is when he gets hurt, like I said, in a normal redraft league, I'm so comfortable taking him because I don't have to hold him for 17 weeks.
Yeah, and to correct myself earlier, the divisions that the Arizona Cardinals and all NFC West teams really play is the Cardinals play the NFC South. So we're high scoring game environments there. All of the NFC teams that are not the whole division, they play the Cowboys and the Packers, who are also high scoring offenses. And on the AFC side, they play the AFC South. So that's partially why the Cardinals' implied point total is so high. And this is kind of an edge that you can get by looking
on top
at
of that.
Kind of stuff.
You know who they play week 17?
They play the 49ers week 17?
They play the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, yeah. Right. So that's their AFC off opponent, too. Yeah. So, like, they hit the nuts with their schedule, man, in terms of the amount of points that this team is going to need to score. So, yeah, I had James Conner buried in the 70s and 80s because he's old and he's a dead zone running back. Dude, he's in my 50s now, man. I'm willing to take this dude. I like Trey Benson. I still am going to draft Trey Benson on the teams I don't get James Conner because I still think it's relatively a good bet to make. Because if Conner does go down, Benson's going to absolutely smash. But until the Arizona Cardinals tell me anything other than James Conner is one of the most integral parts of our team, I'm going to start drafting him heavily.
Yeah, and again, doing this video, I learned a lot about my own running back rankings and where stuff was wrong. Like, I'm not going to be a hater here. Like, realistically, if this guy's going to get production, yeah, sure. If you're in a best ball mania format where you don't have trading, maybe you're a little bit more hesitant on these older running backs because the money is at the top. But we're doing this in the frame. A lot of you guys are watching this. Who should I draft in my sleeper redraft league with my friends? James Conner, Alvin Kamara, going to get off the hot starts regardless.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So these aging running backs, don't be afraid of them. I know we sound like unks right now, like big time.
Tradability matters, man.
It matters. Yeah. Especially like you said, you and I trade like absolute sickos, man. When you start off your fantasy league and James Conner through the first 6 games of the year is the RB4 in points per game, you virtually have your pick of who you want to trade him for. Breece Hall gets out to a slow start. You could probably get him with ease. Kenneth Walker gets out to a slow start, but you like the efficiency, you could go trade for him. Even higher up, you could probably go get Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, somebody like the Chase Brown who's getting out to a slower start.
Well, that's the fascinating thing I would say personally about the dead zone range is even though everybody knows, oh, dead zone, older, don't draft. It's like when push comes to shove, when the bullets are flying in the chamber week 4, maybe a guy loses Puka Nakua and you can go get him for some Fugaz because you have James Conner, who's the RB3 through 4 weeks. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like
it
maybe it
happens all
costs
the
James.
time, man. Week 3, 4, people start panicking about the injuries that they have. Oh God, I have no RB2. Oh, like it, because other people will start listening to content and try and run 0 RBs and realize that they hate 0 RB or whatever, and be like, why did I listen to that content creator? I need a RB2 for my team, and they'll just go trade their best receiver for James Conner or whatever.
Well, exactly. I was obviously making a joke in the flock league when Nathan traded Avery, Justin Jefferson, but that's all. Obviously, if you guys know the inside joke, you guys know the inside joke. Yeah, James Conner plus like a Jacoby Myers type of last year probably could have got you a big time wide receiver.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So let's pivot into this next range of running backs, which is the aging RB2s. I would say, like, I wouldn't expect any of these guys to be RB1s. Let's just put it that way. Even though Aaron Jones has been an RB1 before, I just don't expect with Jordan Mason there him to be an RB1 projection. But with David Montgomery, you're getting a guy who's going about the end of the 5th round, early 6th round. Aaron Jones, the 6-7 turn. Tony Pollard mid-round 7, and then Brian Robinson around the 7-8 turn. So with these guys, it's kind of baked in that they don't have quite the level of upside of a Joe Mixon, of a James Conner, of an Alvin Kamara, or of like a Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, some of the guys we talked about already. But if you look at the point per game output for when these guys were healthy, when these guys were the starter, the current situations that we're dealing with here, you're getting solid RB2 production out of these guys in the 6th, 7th round. And at that point in the draft, if you're in an ESPN league and it's, a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex, 2 running back, 1 quarterback, 1 tight end format, this could be the 7th player that you select or the 8th player that you select off the board. And he could be a very, very capable flex option for you or an RB2 option for you. So you could see that the best point per game producer in here has been David Montgomery over the last 2 years. But we've talked about the bear and bull case of David Montgomery many times.
Yeah.
He hasn't fallen off from a talent perspective, but the offense may fall off from his talent perspective, and how he's been so efficient has been having a guy like Frank Ragnow, who now retires, having a guy like Ben Johnson scheme up the offense and run the ball like crazy in the red zone. So Montgomery, of these options, I think has the most regression coming to him.
He is the biggest dead zone profile in this range because unless Jahmyr Gibbs were to get hurt, he doesn't have the standalone upside to completely obliterate this ADP. Because I do think there's a scenario, hey, guess what? The Vikings offense looks very good. Aaron Jones punches in like 15 touchdowns. Like that is in the range of outcomes. Brian Robinson Jr., same thing with Commanders. I mean, we'll talk about Pollard in a second because he was actually also on your end is near running back video, if I'm not mistaken. To me, out of these 4 running backs, Montgomery and Pollard are more your prototypical dead zone.
Yeah, and they're the guys that I'm out on the most in this range as well, because like you said, Montgomery, he goes off the board RB20 or whatever. He probably finishes around RB20 and he doesn't kill you, but he is older too. He does have a lot of touches too, and he doesn't really have a high ceiling now that Ben Johnson is gone, Frank Ragnow is gone, and we assume that a 24-year-old running back's not going to miss significant time.
Yeah, 100% with David Montgomery there. The offense does also tend to fade a little bit. Not saying it's going to be like a terrible unit or so. Like Vegas still really loves the Lions projection, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, there is due for regression on the fact that they averaged 33 points per game last year, and he was number 4 in total touchdowns per game and number 1 in terms of rush attempts inside the 5. If any of those figures go down a little bit, like David Montgomery is not going to be a guy that gets his 50 receptions and 250 carries.
Yeah, and that's why I moved Jahmyr Gibbs up my rankings, because I actually think it's more likely that the thing that kills Montgomery the most is that Jahmyr Gibbs just takes a bigger share of everything involved in this backfield.
16 rushing touchdowns for Gibbs last year, by the way.
Yeah, like it's possible that Gibbs just has like a legit legendary season, and Montgomery goes from best standalone handcuff in fantasy to he's a handcuff with some decent standalone value.
For sure. The next name here, Aaron Jones. Again, some may say, well, prototypical dead zone profile. We just mentioned David Montgomery sharing his backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs. Aaron Jones obviously now has to fend off Jordan Mason, which I don't know when this narrative started that like, oh, Jordan Mason's just going to usurp Aaron Jones. Like people have him now. He's within 10 picks of Aaron Jones on Underdog. He's going in the 90s. It doesn't make sense because Aaron Jones was very efficient last year. And you actually have his weeks 1 to 18. If you isolate out his week 5 where he got hurt in the
I did.
Oh, okay. So you isolated that out. Okay. I was curious if you had done that, but regardless, I mean, we still see he was an RB2 in that stretch. The efficiency was there. Rush attempts inside the 5 could go up as we see the interior offensive line specifically get upticked. And on top of that, going from a quarterback last year who Sam Darnold threw 40 touchdowns last year?
He had 35 passing touchdowns or something like that. They could definitely lean on the run more with a
rookie quarterback.
Like, surprisingly, the Vikings are projected for like top 5 pass rate in the league by Vegas projections, and I think JJ McCarthy is like 7th in passing yard projection. But I tend to think
I like JJ, but that's high.
I tend to think that they're going to run the ball a little bit more than they did with Darnold.
Like, dude, I think JJ McCarthy's passing touchdown projection is higher than Dak's, which is insane.
Yeah,
like, you know
no,
what I mean?
it's higher than a lot of quarterbacks like that. It's higher than Love's. It's higher than Purdy's. It's higher. Like, there's a lot of really good offensive quarterbacks that don't have as high of a passing projection as JJ McCarthy. So, yeah, with Aaron Jones, again, has this dude at 30 years old fallen off? Well, he averaged 4.5 yards a carry last year when he was the starter. So, I mean, he's still a very good running back relative to, where he's being drafted. 93 total yards last year, was 9th among running backs when he started.
Well, I hinted at this too, but they bring in Ryan Kelly and Will Fries over in free agency. You patch up that interior offensive line. You could argue the overall offensive structure for a running back is the best in the league. Having wide receivers that can take the top off, having an offensive line that you like, having Kevin O'Connell scheming your ground game. Like, outside of maybe, 2 or 3 other teams, like the 49ers, the Vikings, 49ers, obviously one of those teams, don't get me wrong. The Vikings nesting spot is one of the best in the league. So realistically with Aaron Jones, another narrative, Jordan Mason, big running back, going to get all goal line touches. Well, he wasn't actually really efficient at his goal line touches last year. And Aaron Jones historically has been efficient inside the 5, has been efficient inside the 10. Hell, he literally had a year where he scored 16 rushing touchdowns for the Packers. Like, yeah, sure, 19. Maybe it's not 19. Like, yeah, sure, maybe
total touchdowns.
Maybe we're not getting prime Aaron Jones here, but 4.5 yards per carry at 30 years old, the guy's still got juice.
Yeah, and he only has 10 touchdowns over his last 2 seasons combined in his last 28 games. I do think that the touchdowns could correct itself. Quietly had 51 catches last year, too. It's not like he's a zero in the passing game. We know what he could do when he was starting. You see he actually ranked the highest of this group in terms of receiving yardage per game, and he was top 15 among the position in that metric, too. So, yeah, I mean, people want to hype up Jordan Mason, let him. Like, I think Jordan Mason's an excellent handcuff and definitely could win people leagues. But as long as Aaron Jones is healthy, I think he's the starting back.
Yeah, and it's like, sure. Is it going to be a situation where Aaron Jones is going to be a 80% snap share guy? No. Like, realistically, 66% snap share, that might even go down a little bit. Let's say it goes to 62% or 61%. It's like, guess what? 60+% of the Vikings offense, that'll fucking play.
Absolutely. Pollard is the one that I'm definitely the most out on in this territory. And it's mainly just because, what did I say when we were talking about why did these guys miss? It was a really young, talented running back nipping at their heels. And to me, Tajay Spears fits the profile for that. And Pollard, while he was really good, you see that 73% snap share when he was the starter before he got injured last year, 16 rushing attempts per game, 4 targets per game. He was a workload play. He was a workload play on a bad team. And while I think they could be improved with Cam Ward, they're probably still a bottom 5 projected offense. In fact, they are in terms of their Vegas implied point total projection. So unless Cam Ward is just an aberration, he's just an awesome, awesome player, Jaden Daniels, Justin Herbert style rookie season or whatever, you're looking at a guy who probably is in a 50-50 timeshare, and I'll take the cheaper back of his backfield when the price tag is currently about a early 7th round pick for Tony Pollard. I would probably rather take the guy who goes right after him at running back in Brian Robinson, who's in a better offense, who has a safer projected role, I would say, as the early down banger goal line back. And normally, do we like early down banger goal line backs? Not necessarily. But when Brian Robinson was healthy last year, 4.5 yards per carry, a full, 1 rush attempt per game inside the 5-yard line. And we know Jaden Daniels, the Washington Commanders offense, is going to be a projected top 6 to 10 unit in the NFL. And especially if Terry McLaurin is, not going to be there or gets off to a slow start or whatever, they might rely on the run game very early on in the season. We've actually seen Brian Robinson the last 2 years get out to very, very hot starts and be very tradable. To your point about redraft tradability of assets, you could probably use Brian Robinson plus, come week 4, week 5, to go out and get a buy low running back like Breece Hall, or a buy low running back like, Jonathan Taylor or Chase Brown or Bucky Irving if they're out to slow starts.
Yeah, and sure, is there concern that, Brian Robinson's probably going to be in a committee, Austin Eckler's going to chip away, Daniel's going to take some rushing attempts too. Sure, but realistically, when I read you off his first 5 games prior to getting hurt, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns. We just talked about David Montgomery. Well, he's made his hay on limited workload, but touchdown equity on a good offense. Why can't Brian Robinson be that for 20 picks cheaper?
Yeah, and not to mention Eckler is not nearly the caliber of workload commander that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. So let's pivot into the rookies, because that's the other part of this equation is, yes, we have all these veterans with, projectable workloads and all this kind of stuff. But sometimes the best picks in this territory is just taking high upside rookie running backs. And we'll talk about that right now here. So I think we can breeze through this first guy, because I think both of us could agree, Danny, that this guy will not remain a dead zone running back, especially with the recent trend of news. Amarian Hampton right now is going off the board in the mid 4th round, a multi-site ADP. But given what's happening on Underdog, where we're seeing him creep into the 3rd round and maybe even higher than this with all this negative news coming out about Najee Harris, there's a very good chance he's not actually a dead zone running back and he goes in the 3rd round, 2nd round.
I'm playing with you guys. If you're on the clock in your slow drafts right now, you're on the clock in your fast drafts right now, and you can still currently get Amarian Hampton anywhere in the number that starts with a 3, you take him. This guy, I'm telling you right now, in 3 weeks, will be valued as a consensus top 25 overall pick. I do not want to miss out on him now. I'm taking it. Hey, top 40 overall pick. Sure, every single time he falls to me on that 3-4 turn, he is on my team because the comps are juicy. And on top of that, I think the best comp on this list, my literal comp for him in my prospect profile, averaged 24 points per game once he got the RB1 autonomy down the stretch, and that's Jonathan Taylor. I think very much Amarian Hampton in a better offensive situation than Jonathan Taylor had as a rookie, by the way. He could be a top 5 to 8 running back, and you're getting him outside of the top 25 picks.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams, Jonathan Taylor. That was the comps for Amarian Hampton. And like you said, Mixon played for a bad Bengals team. Jonathan Taylor had Carson Wentz his rookie season. I can't remember who his quarterback, Phillip Rivers.
It was he had Marlon Mack in front of him, so he didn't get the full workload. And
yeah,
I believe
the quarterback of that team. It was Phillip Rivers, wasn't it?
It was either Rivers, Wentz, or Matt Ryan.
Yeah, I think it was Rivers, if I'm not mistaken, because I think Ryan was the quarterback the year after.
Yeah, regardless, though, I mean, we'll take Justin Herbert and the Chargers offensive line and the Chargers running tendencies any day of the week from a situational perspective. And Amarian Hampton's a 220-plus pound workhorse with legit 4.4 speed.
Yeah, like Joe Mixon's quarterback his rookie year was it was definitely not. I think it was Andy Dalton towards the end of his time in Cincinnati. And I think Javonte Williams may have had Case Keenum or Joe Flacco as his quarterback in Denver. So, I mean, yeah, Amarian Hampton with those comps in an offensive situation that's a lot better, he ain't going to be a dead zone running back. And if he is, you're hammering the draft button on every time. I have him as my 31st overall player, and he's going to keep going up. The more this Najee Harris, like Jim Harbaugh was quoted as saying yesterday that we don't know when Najee's coming back. Okay, well, Hampton's going to have the job by the time you get back, kid.
Yeah, unfortunately for Najee, also people might have been like, "Oh, they signed Nyheim Hines. Does that affect Amarian Hampton?" No, that just shows you their belief in Najee Harris.
Yeah, that's pro Hampton. If they sign Nyheim Hines, it means that it's anti Harris, which is pro Hampton, because Harris is easily the biggest competition for backfield touches in that backfield. And if he's not going to be out there, it is going to be Amarian Hampton's job.
You're going to hate me for this. I moved Amarian Hampton over Bucky Irving.
Yeah, I can't quite get to Breece and Bucky are the next running backs ahead of Hampton for me. I could maybe get there with Breece if we get some more negative buzz on Najee Harris, but I can't quite get there with Bucky yet.
Yeah, well, again, it's fair. I know I'm going to be on an island there, but dude, like, it's exciting.
Yeah, like I picked 109 in my home league, and if he's on the board at my 3rd pick, like I'm going to probably draft him every single time there. Like I could start my draft Puka Nacua, Devon Achane, Amarian Hampton or something like that. I'm going to be smashing that every single time. Let's talk about these other running backs who are definitely going to stay
real
in
quick.
The dead zone, I would say.
You mentioned you have him at 31, correct?
Yep.
So once that news with the quote came out, more information on the Najee injury, I'm at 28th overall, and I feel like that's like being like cautious because it could be a scenario where you're not even getting him at 28 overall in a month from now.
Well, I heard people say, welcome to the 2-3 turn, Amarian Hampton. Like I like it's going to happen. Like
Valid.
You're deciding now between, the quarterback. Like I actually have the quarterbacks ahead of him, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, but you could definitely argue that, structurally you'd rather have the running back or whatever. Harrison, Breece Hall, T Higgins, Trey McBride, like that's going to be the conversation going forward.
Draft Amarian Hampton if you can get him in the mid-4th is the closing
and
sentence
Underdog,
here.
like right now you can. So go draft on Underdog and use the code FSE. Let's talk about RJ Harvey, who right now I would say bear and bull case. Obviously bull case is that he wins the job. He's a starting running back for Sean Payton. Bear case is that J.K. Dobbins is still a very talented running back. And it sounds like the buzz is pro Dobbins at the moment, which is, hey, he could start the beginning of the year. A lot of beat writers are saying that. The coaching staff is old school. They might make the rookie earn his stripes and that kind of thing. Comp-wise, you're also talking about a significantly worse prospect than everybody going in this territory, and definitely than Amarian Hampton, who was the first running back that's a rookie off of the board. Trey Benson, Sony Michel, Rashad White, Miles Sanders as rookies. None of those guys, other than Michelle, who was actually a first-round pick, really got a huge workload. And I would say that RJ Harvey is probably more of a later season play and less appealing in home redraft leagues as opposed to best ball.
Yeah, I think the best comp, honestly, would be like, see, the thing is, obviously, this guy didn't get like a huge workload in his rookie year. Yeah, like maybe he doesn't like James Cook had 91 carries, 525 yards, and 32 targets for 21 receptions. Like, I think Harvey's going to get more comparable work, but I think it's going to be a similar case where, like, James Cook, if you saw that year, 5.8 yards per carry, 8.57 yards per reception. It's like people were saying, why didn't this guy get a bigger workload? I feel like we may be left saying that about RJ Harvey, where it's like he might touch the ball 180 times across the year, but average like 5.5 yards per carry and 8 yards per reception.
Yeah, I think the volume is just going to be an issue for him, which is why I would say generally I'm out on RJ Harvey at his current cost. But I do think on, Yahoo and ESPN, he could slide to like the 8th round or something in ADP because people, especially if the buzz continues in Dobbins' favor, you might be drafting him more as like a bench stash as opposed to as a starting player for you. So keep an eye on his price tag, but as a current early to mid 6th round ADP, I think it's just a little bit too steep for me.
And this is the main one I disagree with. Obviously, we'll talk about Judkins at the end because he involves a lot more context than these other two. But the reason why I can't get on board with Harvey's ADP is I just much prefer the other two running backs that are rookies that go after him.
Yeah, Trevion Henderson, round 6 ADP, comps of Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, and DeAndre Swift. So we're talking a different prospect caliber here.
Yeah.
And it's not like the Patriots are expected to be a bad team. They have an 8.5 projected win total. Drake May produced top 12 fantasy numbers as a rookie with you, me, and Dupree playing offensive tackle and friggin' wide receiver for him. So the offensive improvements of Diggs, who's cleared for training camp, who's going to be on the field probably in week 1. Kyle Williams, we'll start to hear some buzz about him. The only issue for Henderson, similar to Harvey, is that like there's an incumbent veteran there who has an RB1 season under his belt in Ramondre Stevenson. How good is he? We don't know. Ramondre Stevenson doesn't appear to be a very good running back anymore, but he is still a guy with a big contract who has some name cachet around the league. So with Henderson, I think he's a similar bet to Harvey in that he's probably better weeks 8 onward of his rookie season, but I think it'll happen sooner for him, and the receiving upside could be there week 1.
I think it'll happen sooner. I think he has more upside to be a 3-down profile based off the prospect caliber he was. And it's my bet on Drake May. If he has any type of the James White role, which has been reported all offseason, obviously Josh McDaniels being their OC, new regime in town, Trevion Henderson, a top 40 pick when people were saying, well, the Pats need wide receiver help. Why are they drafting a running back in the top 40? Well, when that running back has a wide receiver skill set, guess what? We can funnel him 80 targets, 90 targets out of the backfield, which gets me excited about Trevion Henderson. People have been saying that about RJ Harvey. Like, what if he gets funneled a bunch of receiving targets? Like, they don't have an established number 2. RJ Harvey just, frankly, wasn't a good receiver compared to Trevion Henderson as a prospect. Like, I don't think people realize that.
Not to mention, what's the number one thing that coaches look for to get
Harvey can't block and Henderson can.
Exactly. Every other GMs around the league praise Trevion Henderson's blocking ability.
Everybody was pissed when they took him. You know, the Bears are going to take him at, I believe, the 39th overall pick where they took Burden. Like, they were 100% going to take Trevion Henderson, and he got sniped, I think, the pick or 2 before.
Did you see the press conference? Like,
Everybody wanted him.
Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, not even remotely
best
related
blocking running back he's ever seen.
He literally goes, he's the best blocking running back I've ever seen, like unprompted, pretty much. Yeah. Like, Trevion Henderson's going to carve out this receiving workload, no problem by week 1. The question is, how many carries is he getting? And to me, it's worth the swing because if Drake May and the Patriots are a 9-10 win football team, like the Vegas projection suggests they might be, Trevion Henderson could absolutely eviscerate his ADP.
And guess what, bro? You're either getting him, yeah, sure, okay, he's going to be worse than half PPR. You know who strives in terms of a best ball contest, right?
The rookie late round guy who hammers week 17 upside.
So even despite half PPR in underdog, you're getting value there because of the archetype of running back being more valuable in that format. If you're in your home PPR league, like, is this guy going to be top 3 to 5 in terms of receptions at the position this year? As a rookie?
Yeah, I mean, I've drafted him on 18.9% of my teams. So I've been hammering the crap out of Trevion Henderson in drafts.
Like, I have him ranked 44th overall. So anytime I sort by my rankings on Underdog, he's always my highest rated player when we're in like the 5th, 6th round area. So I've ended up with so much of him. If I go to my completed drafts, go to my exposure running back, I have Trevion Henderson. Where is he listed? I mean, is he hidden? Here, sorry. I have Trevor Henderson literally at 15% of my teams, and that is not even including this batch where I've drafted them basically half my teams. I mean, you can confirm you're in a bunch of those drafts with me. How many Henderson shares did I get?
Oh yeah, I've gotten a lot as well. Anytime you're not drafting him, I'm pretty much taking him. His comps are DeAndre Swift and Alvin Kamara, who average 4.5 and 6.3 targets per game as rookies, respectively. Yeah. As rookies. Yeah. Alvin Kamara 101 targets his rookie season. Trevion Henderson, his best comp in the model is Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, and I'm assuming the Walker one's based off the elusiveness metrics.
Yeah, I mean, it was just more so his grade is similar to Walker.
Okay.
But yeah, and athleticism wise, they were both pretty similar size wise too. So yeah, but regardless, that's an exceptionally good list of comps. Caleb Johnson, the next guy that we can talk about here, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Brooks, and Zach Charbonnet are the comps here. So not quite as good of year one projections as you saw for Trevion Henderson there. But Brooks, I mean, he tore his ACL again, so we can kind of throw him out as what could have been. Zach Charbonnet, I think, is a really good comp for what Caleb Johnson can do. And if you think about it, if Zach Charbonnet goes to the Bengals or the Chargers, there's a team that needed a running back his rookie season and not the Seahawks who already had Kenneth Walker. Charbonnet probably finishes as an RB1 or at least a high-end RB2 as a rookie, and Caleb Johnson goes to a team that absolutely needs an early down running back, runs the scheme that he ran in college, zone scheme, zone blocking scheme, and has a capable quarterback.
Whose offensive coordinator has already praised him for being one of the most cerebral running backs. What was it? There was a specific quote that he used. Instinctual running backs he has seen. That came out of Arthur Smith's mouth. Arthur Smith, as you know, fed the ball to Najee Harris 300 times last year. If you're telling me he's not salivating right now at the 6 foot, 225-pound workhorse he just drafted in the top 100, you guys are making a fool out of yourselves.
Yeah, like the Pittsburgh Steelers were 9th in rush attempts last year, and the teams ahead of them, Philadelphia Eagles, Buffalo Bills, Baltimore Ravens, like the quarterbacks are partially contributing to that. Like you have mobile quarterbacks there. When you think of the Steelers, yeah, they had Justin Fields for like 2 or 3 games, but Russell Wilson wasn't running the ball. They were a top 5 team in terms of rush rate to their running backs last year.
Yeah, which goes to show you, I mean, like you said with those comps, a little bit unclear because obviously Derrick Henry had to fend off a productive DeMarco Murray at that time. It's not like Jalen Warren's posting a DeMarco Murray level threat because I think in Derrick Henry's rookie year, DeMarco Murray rushed for like 1,300 yards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like there's more prospects ambiguity with Caleb Johnson, because the other thing about the comps that you see listed here is that all those guys were second-round picks. So Caleb Johnson, by the model's kind of definition, should have been a second rounder and wasn't. So his you see that rookie draft tier based on draft capital says smash, because he among third-round running backs, he's like a really good third-round running back. And a lot of people have pointed to, okay, it was because it was a good running back class and Henderson and Judkins and all those guys went ahead of him off of the board. But yeah, Caleb Johnson, as far as third-round draft capital running backs go, probably should have went in the second round.
Yeah, I agree there. And we will close off with Quinshon Judkins. Obviously, we would both have him ranked higher right now if there wasn't a...
I'd have him RB2 among rookies, that's for sure.
For sure. I mean, I would have him maybe RB2 or 3. I think I would have Henderson slightly above him. But regardless, like he would be in that discussion. I've talked about it before, how I made a TikTok that literally says draft Quinshon Judkins like a week before the news came out. So leave the L's in the comments for me on that one. But realistically, what I said in that video is you were drafting this guy as the RB25 when that has historically been his floor for the type of prospect caliber he was. The guys that I mentioned in that video that went top 40, similar prospect profiles. I mean, you obviously have some names listed here, but obviously guys like Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, etc. All guys, similar prospect grades that went in the top 40, that their floor, which was Nick Chubb, on the season, by the way, where he had to freaking fend off Carlos Hyde for the first 6 weeks. On the season was the RB25 in points per game. Once he got the full workload was, I believe, the RB12 down the stretch. So if Quinshon Judkins doesn't get suspended again, I'm not going to speak on the actual accusations themselves. But if he doesn't get suspended, it's very clear that he is going to be a league winner if he is a 6th or 7th round pick. That's all I'll say.
And he's still falling. Like he's late 7th round right now on Underdog. You're probably looking at an 8th, 9th, 10th round pick, the more negative news that comes out. But I think the second he comes back and he reports to training camp and he's actually back on the field, he's going to see his price adjust itself. I've been
look at Rashee Rice last year.
Yeah.
Rashee Rice, people will get
that he's probably going to get suspended next year, but we'll have to wait and see because the team is keeping him away for whatever reason right now.
Well, Rashee Rice last year, as you know, was like a 6th round pick, 7th round pick because people thought he would get suspended. The moment we realized the suspension wouldn't happen in 2024, where does ADP shoot?
His ADP shot up all the way to like the third round or whatever. Yeah.
Third round. So I like, yeah, there is risk. I know Jacob Sanderson's actually talked about this as well, because I believe he actually is in law, like he is like a lawyer. He talked about the fact that there is the real possibility he's on the exempt list and doesn't play a game this year. So I'm not saying don't draft Quinshon draft Quinshon Judkins assuming there's no risk. There's absolutely risk drafting him right now, but also knowing if he gets cleared from that, he's probably going to end up materializing into a top 70 overall pick again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I've cooled down a little bit on my Judkins unless I'm getting him like at a supremely high value.
In the
like
hundreds, I think about
100 is when I'm picking him still.
Yeah, like if he falls to like pick 107, 108, it's like, yeah, in a best ball mania type of contest where you're competing against all the teams that already drafted him in the 70s, he's a fine pick there. He's just not somebody I will take 40% of because he's 30 picks cheaper than he was, because there is risk here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the other concept that we can kind of talk about just to tally out this video and get to all of our bases is like, okay, well, if the dead zone is dead, because we've basically established that, like, other than a couple guys, we talked about Pollard and Mixon and, David Montgomery, like, generally speaking, we actually kind of like a lot of these projections, including the rookies and including some of those guys in their prime and some of the aging running backs. Well, what is the new dead zone? When do you want to actually have your running backs before? Like, do you want to, like, if you're in a 2 running back, 1 flex, half PPR league, what point do you want to have like 3 running backs on your roster? And to me, the answer is before like the 8th, 9th round, when you start seeing the Tyrone Tracy's, Jalen Warrens, Cam Scatterbo, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, who's falling, Ramondre Stevenson, Jordan Mason, Javonte Williams types go off the board. That's like the new dead zone where you should probably have 3 running backs or more on your roster at that point.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's a few guys we still like in that range. ETN specifically for the early workload. I am curious. I do think this is something that's going to be continually adjusted as we get closer to the season. People, especially in more casual league structures, league platforms, I think is the best word for it, like ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo, they're going to be more hesitant drafting ETN because of Tank Bigsby. I do think if we hear more positive buzz that he's going to start the season as a starter, he could even rise to like the 70s. So keep that in mind. Travis Etienne, in terms of a profile of a workload, probably profiles more as the old definition of a dead zone back. Like if this was 2018, he'd probably be like a round 5 or round 6 pick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's weird because he also, like, unlike old dead zone profiles, can catch passes and has been an RB1 before. So he's a really, like, if he does end up in the dead zone at some point, because like you said, if he gets more buzz, he'll probably be in the pick 70 to 80 range. He would be a dead zone back, I would say, generally, but we don't know because how good he's been before and also the receiving upside and the offense being good. He'll be a weird case study for sure if he does end up in the dead zone.
And the other 2 we like here, I mean, technically speaking, we have Jordan Mason ahead of the multi-site ADP, but if
Yahoo and ESPN leagues have him in like the 200s. That's why.
And that's why, because if you look on Underdog, he's going in the 90s. So you do the math there, 91 ADP on Underdog. We have him as 110.5 consensus. Yeah, he is a dead zone running back of our new definition. The other guy that we do like, though, compared to the multi-site, is Tyrone Tracy. This is about where he goes over on Underdog. I believe he goes pick 103 or 104 in terms of Underdog ADP. And that's simply because we made our choice. We want Tracy in that Giants backfield. But like you'll see in ADP, him and Scatterbo are basically back-to-back.
Yeah, for sure. So the way that we're playing this, honestly, is just take the best players. Take the best players off the board. Don't worry about all this nonsense about dead zone this and dead zone that. And, this is a dead zone back because he goes in round 6. It's like a dead zone back is a guy that is being elevated by volume, projected volume, doesn't have the talent, has a guy breathing down his neck, doesn't have a good offense, doesn't have receiving upside. Like, that's what a dead zone back is. Let's remember it's on a per running back basis. And like we talked about at the very beginning of this video, it's usually because, 22 to 25 running backs go off the board within the first 50 picks of ADP. And that is no longer the landscape we live in. 14 to 19 running backs are going off the board before the first 50 picks, which means that you're getting still mid RB2 projections in ADP off the board in what was formerly known as the dead zone.
Yeah, sure. It might be the dead zone when 3 out of 12 or 2 of 11 running backs in that range actually end up hitting. Yeah, that's a fucking dead zone. Sub 25% in those years of 2021 and 2022, 25% in 2022, 18.18% in 2021. That is the dead zone. It ain't the dead zone when over half of the players in this range are hitting.
Yeah, 17 of the last 32 running backs being drafted pick 37 to 84 the last 2 years in multi-site ADP, FFPC, whatever, not even just Underdog, have produced positive win rates.
higher than 8.3%. If you guys are curious, by the way, 8.3% would quite literally just be one divided by 12.
Yeah. So that is the end of the video. We went really in depth on the dead zone, how to handle the running back position, because I think it's a really important concept, especially in home leagues, man. Like, you guys may have watched us for a couple of years and just be of the opinion that you should do a hero RB or a zero RB or whatever. It's not the case this year. Like, honestly, if anything, I'm actually leaning towards more getting my running backs early in the first 3-4 rounds when the projections are good. But even if I don't, if I didn't get them early, I would just fade the running back position until round 8. And now I'm like, yeah, I'll dive into the dead zone for a 5th round Alvin Kamara. I'll dive into the dead zone for a 6th round Trevion Henderson. I'll dive into the dead zone for an early 7th round Isaiah Pacheco. Like, I'm totally fine doing it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you as well. At the risk of being called Unk, obviously now I'm 25, you're 27. I'm sure there's going to be Dylan in the comments talking about how we're Unk. I guess we are Unk, man. I got to start going into the family barbecue, getting the apron on, grilling in the back, maybe throwing a football with my younger cousin. Like, that is the arc that I've embarked on with this running back love.
Yeah, I actually am an uncle. So, and I wasn't like 3 years ago, or 4 years ago. So I'm coming into my full, mode of unk. And I also am getting
Welcome
married
to the
next
unk
year,
show.
which is another unk thing. So, but anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. It was a really in-depth breakdown of the dead zone. Make sure to check out flockfantasy.com too. All the tools that we kind of outlined. We also have a new range of outcomes tool where you can see like, a third-year running back who has this type of season, whatever the historical precedent for guys like that. That is brand new. Definitely check that out. Of course, we have our rankings. Prospects tab we showcased as well. My teams feature, you can load in your dynasty teams, your redraft teams. Once you draft them, you can use our mock draft simulator right now. If you want to join mock draft lobbies where people take it seriously, they don't take defenses in the 4th round or whatever, head on over to the mock draft simulator. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up. 7 days for free, 30% off any of the packages. Our brand new season pass will be coming later this week or early next week. So if you guys are coming back to the redraft scene and you're wondering, how do I get your draft guide? How do I get the in-season content for the best price available there? That will be announced later on this week, and it will be something that you're definitely going to want to stay tuned for. So definitely check that out when you guys see the updates. And of course, our draft guide, 1st edition, is live right now. So check that out as well. All that'll be linked down below in the pinned comment. Get started, draft some teams on Underdog, get some values on Amari and Hampton, Isaiah Pacheco, some of the guys that we talked about in depth here. But with that being said, peace out. We'll talk to you soon.